Hydrazine is wicked useful in Astroneer, whether it be for jetpacks, VTOL shuttles, or just thrusters in general. As such, it'd be pretty nice if hydrazine was as abundant as the soil around us. And so it is, because you can turn your soil into hydrazine in Astroneer, thereby allowing for dirt cheap hydrazine in Astroneer. Anyways, there's two methods for this. One of them is more early game and easier to set up, and the other one is late game and a little more difficult to set up. Now you may be wondering, what is the difference between these two methods? Well, the late game method actually costs half the amount of soil to get the same amount of hydrazine, so it's way cheaper to get the hydrazine, but again, it's more difficult to set up, so it's more late game, so you gotta use the early game method until you can make the late game method work, even though it is twice as expensive. So here we are covering the early game method, and the first thing I want to mention real quick is that for both of these methods, the late game and the early game, I will not be mentioning hydrogen, because hydrogen is simply gotten with the atmospheric condenser. It doesn't cost anything, it does not cost any soil, so basically, just get it, because all it costs is power, and what we're really going to be focusing on here is turning our soil into ammonium with an early game method and a late game method, of course, the early game method being really easy. And so the way we're going to get soil in the early game into ammonium is by simply using the soil centrifuge. I'm sure you all already know about this, but if you don't, you simply take 2 soil canisters full of soil, fill up the soil centrifuge, and that will allow you to get 1 ammonium. And of course, we have to do this twice, so we're going to get 2 ammonium, and that is going to cost 4 soil canisters full of soil, and since, again, hydrazine does not cost soil at all, that is 4 soil canisters full of soil to get a single hydrazine, just like that. So now it is time to discuss the late game method, the better method, the twice as cheap method of getting hydrazine from your soil in Astroneer, and that is going to be with the trade platform. But world class jerk, you said we was turning our soil into hydrazine. The trade platform takes scrap. We can't do it that way. Well, yes you can, because you can turn your soil into scrap. Now, if you want an in-depth rundown of how to turn your soil into scrap, there is a separate video on that I will link in the description that I have made, but the gist of it is that you use the soil centrifuge to turn your soil into something that can be crafted into something that can be scrapped. I know that sounds like a lot, but it really isn't that advanced if you understand it, but the best way to do this is to craft resin out of the soil centrifuge so that you can make canisters, and the reason that's the best way to scrap your soil is because it will allow you to automatically craft the canisters, because canisters can be crafted in the small printer. Long story short though, if you turn your soil into scrap, you will end up getting the ammonium for twice as cheap, which in the end means you're going to be getting the hydrazine for twice as cheap, only needing 2 soil canisters full of soil to get the ammonium instead of needing a full 4. Now, just a quick pro tip, just in case you want to know, out of everything that exists in both the trade platform and the soil centrifuge, only ammonium and graphite are cheaper in the trade platform. Both of them are twice as cheap in the trade platform than in the soil centrifuge, but everything else that exists in both of them is like twice as expensive. So the only thing you should turn your soil into scrap for that exists in the soil centrifuge as well is going to be ammonium and graphite. So real quick, and well, actually not real quick at all probably, but I am going to show you both methods automated, and of course with the early game method, it actually will be real quick, but with the late game method, it really isn't. So as you can see here, the early game method, really simple. We just need 3 platforms, no big deal at all. And then there's the late game method. So yes, you are going to get twice as cheap with this one, but do understand that that's a real investment at the start, because you have to throw together this entire thing in order for that to be an automatic process. And when it's not an automatic process, it's really annoying with the late game method, because then you have to do all that scrap conversion by yourself. So you do want the late game method to be automated if you're going to use it at all. So keep in mind that that is a huge task in order to achieve. Now, here's the early game method, automated, very simple stuff. This is something probably most of you are going to end up using if you want to use this method at all, and because automating is really simple. You just need a couple of auto arms and then the normal platforms, and that's it. I forgot to start this, but what happens is we create hydrogen and it just passes it into this, then we create ammonium over here and it passes it into this. The only thing you as the player have to do is put this medium fluid and soil canister on this platform so that the soil centrifuge can make the ammonium, because of course the hydrogen will never stop being produced, because that's how producing hydrogen works. Now the glow sticks over here, they're just to take up space because that's all they're good for. So here's where it's going to get freaky and wild, everybody, because this is going to be kind of hard to explain, and that's you know, if my explaining skills were good, which they're not. So if you're not completely devoted to learning the late game method, get off this video right now, because this is going to be a little rough right here, okay? So same thing at first. We need a medium fluid and soil canister that will automatically be drawn from by a soil centrifuge. No big deal. This auto arm takes it over here so that it crafts in the canisters so we can scrap the canisters. That's also not a big deal. And it becomes scrap so we can put it on the trade platform. Again, pretty easy. We just have auto arms taking it from resin from a soil centrifuge all the way to scrapped goods because we made it into canisters that ended up getting scrapped. Where it gets annoying is with the trade platforms, because I was going to use a storage sensor to say, hey, when the trade platform's full, make it blast off. But the storage sensor doesn't work on the trade platform, at least not for me. When I place it on there, it just doesn't count as a storage device. So I had to do some freaky reworks over here, and this is where it's going to get kind of weird because I don't know if I have the necessary talent to explain this well. Alright, I'm going to try my very best to explain this, but that's not saying a whole lot. In fact, this is like my 10th try. I've just been restarting because my explanation skills are so low level that I can't. Okay, look, anyways, I'm going to try to explain this. I hope you can keep up, and so that begins right now. We need a storage sensor in order to detect when the trade platform is full. And again, the problem with that is the trade platform, it just doesn't work on it. It does not detect whether or not the trade platform is full, so we need a different method. So what we're going to do instead is say, hey, we're going to see if something lands on this medium storage, because if something lands on this medium storage, it only landed there because the trade platform was full and it couldn't land on there. So that's what we're doing. We're using the medium storage to detect when the trade platform is full. So again, we are saying when something lands on this medium storage, we are going to activate the trade platform. Pretty simple, right? Because all we got to do is say when it's not empty. So we need to set the storage sensor to when it's not empty. However, the problem with that is not empty isn't a mode. There is an empty or not empty, which means it's not just going to activate the trade platform when something lands on the platform, it's also going to activate it when something gets taken off, which, long story short, causes a whole litany of issues you don't want to have to deal with. So we have to ignore half of the inputs, okay? So we need to ignore all of the empty inputs because we only want the not empty inputs into this thing. The way we do that is with a count repeater. And so we need to start this thing off with halfway activated, okay? So if we want the count repeater to be halfway activated, so use a button repeater to activate it halfway before you ever use this, so that when a scrap lands on the platform, it activates the count repeater, and it goes through its second iteration, meaning it will actually activate the trade platform. And then when the trade platform comes back, and it takes the scrap that landed here off, it will activate the count repeater, but it won't make it blast off because it will only be halfway activated, and then it loops back around. It actually works. My throat's sore. I hope this made sense to you, by the way, because I have too sore of a throat to try this again. This was my last try. I hope I didn't screw it up. So if this made any sense to you, good job. But if it didn't make sense to you, just do what I have right here and it will work, okay? Empty or not empty on both of these. And by the way, the reason you need two is because you need two to keep up with how much scrap's coming in. I feel like that was self-explanatory. I hope it was at least. But yes, have each of these have a empty or not empty with a count repeater of 2 stacked on top of it, and have that activate the trade platform. Oh, my throat's so sore. I hope I can survive to the end of this system here. Anyways, the ammonium gets back, and it gets put into this canister. So now, why are we putting it into a canister? Well, we need to store it somewhere that isn't this platform over here, so this platform is available for scrap the whole time. But also, why a canister? Why not a storage of some sort? Well, because if we use the storage, a normal storage, then the hydrogen would infect this entire platform. If we make it a resource canister, hydrogen cannot take up that space. Only ammonium can. I'm losing my voice right now. I need to make this happen. Okay. See if this picks that up. It can only go over here to the chemistry lab, and that's what we want because that's where the hydrazine is crafted. The ammonium can only will take from the resource canister because we always have it outputting ammonium. So if I put an ammonium in here, it'll immediately come out. It's just there to make sure only ammonium can land in that spot. And it also doubles the storage a little bit. Anyways, the hydrazine gets crafted and it gets put over here in storage, and this is nice because you can do whatever you want with it now. I hope this made sense. This video was a bit of a mess. No, this video was an incredible mess. Probably the most messy video I've ever made, but I didn't get to retry on explaining this enough times because my throat hurts really bad. I think you should subscribe because I went through a degree of pain that cannot be described on this day, just so that you could know how to get hydrazine from 2 soil canisters. That is some cheap hydrazine, okay? I'm bringing you that great value rocket fuel at my own demise. I don't know, look, just subscribe. I'm going to end this video.